Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Mwaura Muriu. I am the convener of Unthinkable Kenya, and I'm excited to be yet again having another amazing coffee break with a good friend and someone who is in an industry that is very, very interesting. As you well know, what we do with the coffee break is look at topics that are influencing what we call the fourth industrial revolution. That word sometimes escapes me. But basically, these are the future skills that are going to influence your life and my life. They already are. We just may not know it. And unfortunately, for most of us who are not techies, then the things they just flow above our heads. You'll hear about them. You'll read about it in the news. You'll hear things about 5G and artificial intelligence, I don't know what, and you really do not know what it means for you, for your career, for your life, for your business. And that's why we do this, just so that we can demystify what these future technologies and these future skills are. And so excited to have you here with us. And I'm hoping that over the next hour or so, you're going to at least pick something out of this that will then help you be future ready. And of course, as we've done before, this is just the beginning of the conversation. So today, because we have a very short time, we're going to be doing a little bit of an overview of it. But if you are interested in getting a little deeper into the topic, then we have a boot camp that comes up after this. And that boot camp is where we spend 5 days going deeper into the topic, showing you how you can either apply it in your business, how you can grow your career in the same space, how you can start putting together strategies on how you can capitalize on this capability to drive the competitiveness of what it is that you do. So stay tuned and let's have a good time together. Great. So let's get to it. Mr. Luchiri. It is nice to see you.
Thank you.
It's nice to be here.
Pleasure to be here too.
I think I have discovered that this world is too small today. First and foremost, we were in campus apparently around the same time.
Yes.
Apparently you were my student leader. I had no idea.
A bit sad you didn't vote for me on that one.
I might have. Like I told you, I do not remember voting. But
might have is good way to spin yourself out of it. But
but what a small world, man. It's crazy. JQuad, Juja boys, yay. But it's good that we've circled back, and this is what, like 13 years later, here we are again. Time flies, man. Time flies.
It's been more for me.
And then I have to say this for purposes of people who might be wondering. I showed up and Luchiri was wearing a jacket. And then we sit down and he says, let me remove my jacket. And he removes his jacket and we are dressed the same.
Great minds.
That's the narrative we're gonna stay with. Great minds think alike. I've heard that this could have been a problem if we were of the other gender. Since we're here, we do it. So this is not intentional. This is not how we do coffee break. We don't get our guests to dress up the same way. It just so happens that we were dressed together like this, and maybe that's a side of good things. So let's see.
Maybe we share the same tailor.
But I'm excited. I'm excited for the convo we are having today. This year, I feel like I'm just getting my mind blown over and over just by what is going on out there that I did not truly appreciate it before. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful for that, because maybe if we were not living in the season that we are living right now, then these topics may not have been as relevant. But everyone now recognizes the importance of being ready for what you don't know that you don't know. And that's where this constant education and enlightening ourselves is important. And today we're talking about Internet of Things, right? You are, I don't know if you qualify to be called a veteran yet, but given the little I know about the history of Internet of Things, I think you might just be, at least in Kenya, right? You've been at it for what, 10 years now?
No, even in Kenya, it hasn't been that long. Internet of Things itself has been around for, it blew up in 2010, 2011. That's when the whole name started getting used. What made it blow up is Google buying this company. Is it called Nest or Nesta?
Yeah, Nest, yeah.
Yes. And they started using the term Internet of Things quite a bit. And then in such forums as the World Economic Forum, somebody presented it as the Internet of Things. And then during the yearly tech, what do they call them in the US? The tech...
These conferences?
Yes.
Yeah.
After that, I think Apple or one of those companies actually just named it Internet of Things as the main, topic for that year. And after that, it started picking up, and people started throwing up the numbers and whatnot. Yeah. And I think it was time, because everything was mature. When you talk about internet, when you talk about speeds and all that, and you talk about the problems that had to be solved. But I've heard you mention a name, Industry 4.0. So people will hear a few terms, but they're all related. Yeah. We tend to call it the Internet of Things, and we hope everybody else calls it the Internet of Things. Industry 4.0, I've read the German government uses that one much. People will hear about M2M, which is more machine to machine. Telcos tend to use M2M much. The rest of us just call it Internet of Things.
So they all mean the same thing?
Slight modification variations, but still the same thing. Yeah. It's sadly, we have not defined. Internet of Things is just physical things connecting to the internet to help humans or whatnot.
I see.
Yeah. Let me put it as plainly as that. It's just
physical things connecting to the internet to help humans. Yes. So my phone.
That's my definition. I hope it goes. Should be taught in school.
It's very easy to do.
Yeah.
My phone is a physical thing. It's connected to the internet, and it helps me, work.
No, that's your phone. That's not Internet of Things.
Wait, no? But this is a physical thing. You just said physical things.
I meant the ones that existed where we couldn't monitor them properly.
Okay.
I'll give an example. And this is the example I always give. It's a hype example. It clicks with people easily. Your fridge telling you what's in there so that you can be prepared for supper or dinner. When you're driving from home, your car already alerts the house that this guy has left office. And your fridge realizes, what your husband or wife should have told you. Oh, when you're coming home, pass by. And they forget. So your fridge realizes you have less eggs, you have no milk. And then it alerts you through your phone. Please pass by the supermarket, because I do not have enough eggs and milk. And I know tomorrow your schedule says you're having French toast.
Wow.
That's the fancy explanation of Internet of Things.
It's like having another wife in the house who's not your main wife. I don't know how wives will feel about losing that ability to instruct us on what to do.
No, they'll now be instructing you on what to buy, which type of fridge to buy. One that can give those instructions.
This is a reality. Is this happening somewhere in this world?
Yeah, that's a reality. But we now need to get to the serious side of things. How does it help me add value completely? That's a nice one to solve, those small things that might frustrate you. Yeah. But then let's talk about the main areas that we really need help in that. Okay. And it is, we'll be talking about in agriculture, in health, in what else? Logistic companies, and real estate and water. Let me not say water, let me term it as utilities industry, power and water.
We'll come to that in a bit.
Yeah.
I wanna just take a step back to how does, young Luchiri somewhere along his journey decide Internet of Things is my gig now, right? You were doing GIS and we were laughing about this before. You'll explain what you were doing before you got into Internet of Things. And then I would want to also understand if that was a natural transition, or was it the equivalent of, say, a lawyer deciding to become an aeronautical engineer? So just share a little bit of that story first, because I think it forms a good basis for what we're discussing.
Okay. So when did I sit for my exams? I did what we call geomatics engineering at JKUAT. We were actually the second class. Interesting thing about my career is that my parents have never known what I do, cannot pronounce where I've worked and all that. I finished high school knowing I want to do comp sciences, got called into JKUAT to do geomatics engineering, so they have computer lessons in there, programming, and I was like, okay, I'll do this thing. It's new, I don't care. New is good, and that has been my career path, doing new things. I've actually never worked for a company that existed 10 years before I joined it. So yeah, I do geomatics, and my dad, and you're doing what? Geography. And what do you do exactly? Up to date, they don't know what I did. They are happy. I finished that, and I work for Google. Now I also have to explain to them what Google is. Google. Why didn't this guy just find an easier company name to work with? People are joining Kenya Power and Posta. And that story ends there. But then when they asked an engineer, what sort of engineer, you're either civil engineer, electric engineer, mechanical engineer, you are this engineer. And then to summarize it to the world, you say you do GIS, Geoinformation Systems. So at Google, what we did is actually just anything you're using in Africa and in Kenya particularly, the map, the Google Maps that we are using currently, we did that. Mm-hmm. Team of 5, then working with the current CS, Joe Musheru. After that, we saw a gap. Google would not deal with small numbers. Companies would come to the offices and say, we want to do map our ATM machines. You're asking how many, they say we have 50, 100. Google talks millions. You want to map millions, then we can start helping. 50 or so, they'll send you to, that guy knows how to do it, this guy knows. So my supervisor then, a gentleman called Mark, very nice guy. So the opportunity, started a company. I'd actually also transitioned a bit. And the second company I joined was called Upande. My parents, again, have never known how to. Umande, Uende, yep. And that's now where we did GIS proper. Now, let me explain GIS and then I'll explain how it transitions to IoT. GIS, Geoinformation Systems, in simple terms, is the collection of data, analyzing this data, and then disseminating it in a way that non-technical people would understand it. Okay. Yeah. But it has to be data on a location. So water points, guys dealing in water would like to know, where do we have water points? Is it within reachable distance to communities that actually need it? So that when we are going to dig more boreholes, we are not digging next to another one that works and we are wasting resources, So such kind of things, yeah. Now, as I mentioned, GIS has to do with collection of data. one of the most expensive things to do in geoinformation systems is collecting data. Because collecting data, you're either doing it, sending people out on the ground to map this stuff, mapping the road networks and points and places, even on Google, was not cheap. Google spent a fortune.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's always a wonder to me how accurate it is.
Now imagine if you have already drawn a road and then it's closed today, it's diverted and people are still using your maps, So you have to update this every now and then. Even if it's to do with water point mapping, you mapped a water point today, a few months down the line it blocks or it sinks or it doesn't work. So, and you spend millions collecting this data. So how are you going to do it annually? It's not sustainable. So people would scratch their heads on how do we keep collecting this data continuously, efficiently, and in a way that's cheaper. So I was in GIS for like 7 years or so with Upande, doing groundbreaking stuff, introducing data collection using phones and whatnot. It was a new thing then, until everybody became a GIS expert and was doing it, and you realize, okay, you need to branch.
You gotta find something else to do. Kenyans, eh? M-Pesa shop. It's what we do.
Our shops look the same. Small hole, candies here, bread here, milk. So everybody got into it, and we are like, okay, we need to start thinking of other different things. And then, as I said, Mark, brilliant guy, and they started mentioning the Internet of Things. I think in the Netherlands, where he's native, things had started heating up, World Economic Forum talking about this Internet of Things, whatnot. And to me, even the name was funny for the start, Internet of Things. I think it's because of that song. These are the things that I would call...
Maybe that's what inspired him to do the song. I don't know.
He wouldn't know the song, but when I first heard Internet of Things, I was like, who would call something Internet of Things? Can you define things? So that was like 2016, I think, 2017, I had Internet of Things, but I was so deep into GIS, I didn't bother. Then one of the projects we were working on then was actually to help reduce water losses by water companies. And one of the ways to do that, there's this famous saying, if you can't measure it, then you can't control it. You just don't know how much you're losing. So it's a simple concept. Water companies lose about 50 to 60% of the water they have already cleaned that's supposed to be supplied. Different ways. Physical losses, leaks, whatnot. And then, of course, other ways, build or not build.
Idea.
So, yes, we will talk about it more. So, guys, we figured out if you know you're producing X, and at the end of the month you're billing Y. So if you produced 10 liters and you're charging 2 shillings per liter, you should be getting 20 shillings. But you find that you're collecting 5 shillings. What happened in between? So first and foremost, you need to see if you're losing water physically. And you cannot go tracking the whole pipe, where is the leak happening? But you can at least get a sense. If you put a sensor somewhere or a smart meter that says 10 liters left the reservoir, up to this pipe, we have only measured 7. So 3 has gotten lost somewhere in between. Okay, we have charged the client for only 2 liters. So what happened here? Something also has gotten lost here. Smart ways of doing this without physically having to
send people to go on.
And you see, that's data collection. So for me, the Internet of Things became easy because hardware will help me do data collection, which is part of GIS, much more efficiently. So it was easy to transition.
Yeah, because it sounds very similar. It's like you are already sort of doing Internet of Things before, you just weren't calling it Internet of Things.
Yes, we just weren't calling it Internet of Things. Yeah. So it became easy. It's like, oh, if machines sitting there continuously, daily, sending me data are replacing this whole exercise of sending people to the field or having to buy expensive satellite imagery, then that's nice. It solves that bit. Now we can concentrate on other things. Like now we go into the new things, like all these data you're collecting. Because if you send people out, you're only collecting data once in a year. Like how many liters does this water point give in a year? But if this gadget is sending you data hourly, that's a lot of data. You now go into blockchain and AI and all these other things.
Big
so
data.
We move from just collecting data to analyzing big data. And once you've analyzed big data, what next? Like I remember I was selling Internet of Things to a client and he told me, Luchiri, yes, the greenhouse is hot. So what next? You know, it doesn't help me to know it's hot.
So you have to help me make decisions outside
make decisions. Yeah. So we are sorting out one side. Now let's move to the analysis and regurgitating, or not regurgitating, but passing out these data into a way top management understands it, technical management gets it, person who's supposed to actuate things on the ground understands it.
I like that. So it sounds to me like anyone who is in the business of anything that has to do with, shall I call it physically distributed assets, could use in one shape or form the services of somebody like you, especially if they need, if the optimization of those assets is critical to business success.
Oh yes.
So like the example that we were talking about earlier of Cook and its fridges and stuff, and I want to tell that story. That's a very clear example. They wanna keep track of the temperatures, because as long as that soda is at the right temperature in the fridge, the customer will enjoy it, which means the advertising that says, you know, the bottle with the dripping becomes true. Otherwise, if that's what your billboard is saying, but what I'm ordering at the shop is not that, then that's a problem. And they had no way of controlling that before. Now they have a way of tracking, okay, these particular shops in this area are not maintaining good temperatures. We can do something about that. I'm thinking people who manufacture things, yes, right? If they wanna understand, but just help me understand. And I don't know how many other industries you guys are serving outside of, say, water. Just who are the people who are today should be thinking about Internet of Things?
I think everybody should be thinking about Internet of Things. Yeah.
Like I'm in banking. Why should I be thinking about Internet of Things?
We'll get back to that.
We'll get back
to that. But first things first, we solve where there's need, yes, where you're adding value. The Coke one, actually, as we were talking, Coca-Cola, I think at McGill were the first to do Internet of Things without knowing it. Competition is a good thing. So they deployed the first fridges, telling them the temperatures in those fridges, in that fridge at the university. And that is, like, in hindsight, the first ever Internet of Things deployment that was done. I think this was back in the 70s. I wonder how they did it, because internet must have been, probably it was some radio communication or anything. I haven't read much on it, just know they did that. With the advancements of internet, which started picking up in the late 90s now, the World Wide Web and all that, things becoming interconnected. Procter & Gamble, fast-moving consumer goods and all that, are having issues with their supply chain. And you need to track what's in the store, what has left, what is just about to leave, what you need to order. And there was a guy, let me not call him a guy, He's responsible for the name Internet of Things. He says he would have preferred it Internet for Things. Wanted to do a presentation to his management. And because internet was the buzzword then, he needed to use the term internet.
He did it somewhere.
Yeah, so the presentation was called Internet of Things, but what he was actually drawing the attention to is the RFID tags. They were just trying to develop them or developing them then. So
those are the tags that have, I think they use them when you go to events.
But then they started, the simplest example is in supermarkets. You'll find some goods have some circular thing there, even clothes shops.
Yeah.
You know, Kitambo, we will go into a supermarket and Kitambo, you had to be checked. You
have to show your receipts.
Yeah. Nowadays, if you chomoka without paying, that thing will go off. Yes. That's an RFID tag.
It has not happened to me, but I have seen it happening to somebody.
Yes. Now, its purpose is not just to alert when you have walked away with stuff. To manage your stock, like you don't need to see there are 2 cans of margarine remaining so that you make an order. Yeah. Immediately, it passes the counter. They know we had 50 packets of margarine, 2 have gone, 8. Immediately they hit half, we need to order from the supplier, the wholesaler. And you see, that whole thing would make you make a call. Sometimes the call wouldn't go through, all that nonsense. But right now, with all these things automated, even the system itself can alert the supplier that, you supplied margarine, those guys might be in need. So instead of them asking you, just ask, should I? And so that's the whole RFID thing they were trying to develop. And it became successful. RFID is now being used everywhere for all sorts of things, including tracking animals and all that. So that's how the whole Internet of Things started. Okay. Yeah. Industries were using the term machine to machine because a machine will be doing something there, another one needs to take over, so 2 machines will be communicating. You don't need a human to interfere all the time. So in industries and in telcos, you'll hear them talk about M2M quite a lot, machine to machine. But that's because it's a machine talking to a machine, no human involved in between or has to know what's happening. What was there? Yeah, so I was answering your question. Who needs the Internet of Things? If you have humans to physically take data for you every now and then, you need it automated. You are candidate for Internet of Things. I'll give another example. We have talked about the water sector.
Yes.
It's major.
And I feel like it's the utility sector overall. So water, electricity, internet, I'm assuming in itself, provision of that.
Already.
What else do people use in our houses?
Gas,
sanitation.
Petroleum. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Gas. Yeah. Yes, you say.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that. That's an obvious, So the government really, for instance, should be a big consumer of IoT at the moment. Yeah. I hope they are. I don't know if they are. You will tell me. Telecommunication companies, of course, with their masts and all these things that they have. Who else?
Agriculture.
I can see that.
And I have a personal example. I was farming for fun at some point, and this small parcel gave me so much maize, harvested quite a lot, and I started telling myself, what if instead of half an acre, instead of half an acre, I make it 2 acres.
Yeah.
Why 2? Why not 5 or 10? And I got into 10 acres, started farming, and then there was a term that even came up after that. We were mobile farmers. You are in the city, but yes, you are helping farm back in the rural areas. Most of us are like that. I don't
Telephone farmers.
I don't know a Kenyan who's not side hustling, and farming back in Shags is part of it. So yeah, I get into farming. So then I'd have to rely on the guy I've employed back there to tell me it's time to plant. Because, he has seen it started raining, so he says, oh, time to prepare, time to plant, time to put fertilizer. But now there's these incidents where it rained, part of the farm clogged water. And when that happens, acidity and all that increases. And then I'd call and he'll tell me, it will be good if you bought, oh my goodness, where is my agriculture? Is it potassium or is it nitrate? When it is acidic, you need to put a base. So
I like that you're looking at me like I've got answers to what you're saying.
No, but when it clogs, when the soil gets acidic, you need to put something, whatever it was. So I'd ask, how is it? He says it's clogged, but you need to buy these so that we put it. And then from his tone, I'll think it's not an emergency. Yeah. So I'll say, okay, and cash is tight, so let's look next week.
You know how we talk.
Yeah, we never say, ingekuwa mzuri kama ungepata pesa tuweke, but I'm like, oh, it's not an emergency. The following week, I also I don't call, I don't need to send money.
As well. Yeah.
Then I send my old man to go check, and he tells me, forget about that thing. Those plants are withered, they are gone. Don't even bother sending money for this.
Oh my God.
And then I start thinking, if I had a sensor in that soil telling me the acidity, I don't need to rely on this guy telling me. He even doesn't know how acidic it is. He's just seeing it's clogged. He will know it is bad when the maize start turning yellow. Yes. But if I knew on day 2, a sensor that is there is telling me, first and foremost, the water level is this high. Secondly, the acidity here is this much. Fourthly, chief, your soil needs this type of fertilizer. I'll simply be looking on my phone and telling the guy, chief, I need to order for these, and then imweke. If I have a camera there relaying things to me, I see how green my maize is or not. So agriculture is one area that needs it.
I mean, that sounds like heaven.
Yes.
Right? Especially if I was doing telephone farming, it sounds as well like heaven if I'm running 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 acres, because then the sensors are just going to tell me how my farm is doing and where to deploy my resources and stuff like that. Is this, and as you answer that, I have 2 quick anecdotes for you. One is a farm in Ruiru. Mm-hmm. So a few years ago, I was running an agricultural investment company. Mm-hmm. And we lost a lot of money through that.
You have to lose money.
It's just,
We need to help. You
lost a lot of money. But in the process, picked up a few things. One was we had a reference farm here in Ruiru, a certain gentleman who has been featured in the media as well quite a number of times and won many awards. And he's got, I think it's a 1/4 acre. Mm-hmm. And on this 1/4 acre, he had like 50 cows. And there's a way he had just organized the whole thing. But the most fascinating thing was he had 2 employees. Okay? And when we went to visit him, you could see everything was very systemized in terms of how the cows are fed, milking, the cleaning, And that was the first time I actually saw Internet of Things deployed. So he had his little office with screens, and each of his cows had, I think the RFID tag, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And he had all these little dots. And what he was telling us is, if one of these green dots turns red, for instance, then I know something is up with this cow, and I can tell my guy, check cow number Career, and he goes and he checks it, and we do whatever it is. He had mechanized the milking. Mm-hmm. So the cows would just be triggered by something, I don't know what, but they would move. They get into the milking bay. They get milk. It was fascinating. We couldn't believe this was in Kenya.
How many acres you say?
It was a quarter.
A quarter.
It was a very small acreage, right? If you look at the place from outside, you wouldn't even think there are cows in there just because of the way he has done the structure. Then we had one of our farms. This is the second anecdote. So we had a farm we had invested in Athi River. And we couldn't, for the life of us, figure out what was wrong. We were doing strawberries. One season, they are great, massive things, right? We harvest, we're happy there. Next season, everything just dies. More little tiny things. And I sent agronomist after agronomist after agronomist. We couldn't figure out until one day this old lady who had been an agronomist for years, we imported her from Naivasha to come and help us out. And she came and she did this one thing. And she told us we have something she was calling a dead pan, which basically means that we had put so much fertilizer that the soil, just where the roots really needed to suck in water, had become like, it's like a floor, right? So water couldn't pass. Whatever nutrients we were trying to feed the plants couldn't pass. And then she calls me and her verdict is, you're gonna have to kill all these plants and redo your whole soil. And I'm like, I just put like 1 million shillings in that. I'm like, what are you trying to say? And in my head, because I met a gentleman afterwards who had developed a little device that you'd put into the soil. And then what happens is it can tell you the level, how your soil is doing. So not acidity, what is pH levels, right? Yes. So it could read pH levels and things like that. And
soil moisture content, pH levels,
right?
Yes.
I also saw an insurance company that was using, I don't know if this falls in IoT or geospatial stuff, but they used to use satellite imagery to tell how a particular piece of farm is doing. And so they had deployed it somewhere in North Kenya. And they would use it for insurance premium payments. Yep. So the moment their systems tell them that you've had that either the rains have not come for a long time, etc., they would automatically release insurance payments to the farmers. So that used to take care of claims and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just sharing those because I'm assuming all those things fall within the realm of IoT.
Yes.
And because I have seen them in practice, that makes it very exciting.
It seems you have been a good student. Now you understand GIS and IoT. It's all things happening geographically on a location somewhere, but it's all data collection. You needed this data. Yeah.
I get that.
Now, you had to spend time getting somebody from Naivasha to come tell you, this is the problem. If you had that probe in there, it would have started warning you much earlier. It tells you.
It sounds like $1 million business. Is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is what's happening.
We're gonna take a quick break. Just a quick commercial break. We'll be back just to get deeper into other sectors that IoT is impacting, as well as how you can also start your own journey towards getting into that space. So see you in a couple of minutes.
Let's build transformative businesses. No games.
Your business plan should be not about what you can do, it should be about what needs to be done.
No jokes.
Any new enterprise emanates as a result of a problem. If there is a problem, there is a major enterprise there.
No BS.
People have aspirations, and if there's one thing I learned through my career and everything else, is the day you underestimate consumer aspiration is the day when you're doing that nonsense of stupid.
It's time you did the unthinkable. Join other business leaders who are keen to build unthinkable organizations. Learn from the people who have been there, done the unthinkable, and won.
Always build a business that is beyond your capabilities.
Exchange knowledge with like-minded peers. Be part of Unthinkable. Email imagine@unthinkable.co.ke or register at www.unthinkable.co.ke.
And we are back. I hope all is well. I hope you've captured something, at least from the first part of our conversation today. As a recap, I'm here with Luchiri Omoto. Do you have an English name, by the way? Just curious. Or have you decided that's...
I don't know why we call them English names. It's no, they are not. They're mine came from the Bible, so it's probably a
But where did the Bible
Jewish
come?
name.
Okay.
Anglicized. It's an anglicized Jewish name. Yeah, I have one of those.
We're getting caught up in the details, right?
You continue.
Okay, Luchiri Omoto. And if you do check him out on LinkedIn and find that the person you see there looks a bit different from the person you're seeing on the panel, do not panic.
Bad hair day.
It's the same guy, I promise you. Yeah, and he's doing amazing work in the IoT and GIS space. So, Luchiri,
You dressed up like me but didn't put on your wig.
a fun fact. My dad actually has brilliantly massive hair. Okay, used to. Now he's an old man. He's had through things. I know exactly what will happen to me in a few years' time. But in his younger days, had massive hair and beautiful, soft hair, right? I did not get his hair, evidently. So when I let mine go, it becomes Ndengu's.
Okay, sorry about that. Dengues are bad, but tough. Growing hair is good.
My brother, on the other hand, has full-on dreadlocks.
My kind of guys.
Yes, I think you'd get along, but we're getting sidetracked. So we were talking about the applications, different ways that the IoT is being applied. Of course, myself and the people watching now can confidently say they know what IoT is, right? It's physical things that are able to talk to each other to help humans. You see how good that explanation was, because I can remember it word for word as it is. We also know that it is a technology that is fairly new, but might have actually been in existence for quite a while before. We just didn't used to call it IoT. And we also know that its application cuts across many industries because of this need to not just gather data, but do something with that data. But so far, what I have picked is that the biggest success of IoT is and I feel like I'll be simplifying it too much by using this word, but it is what it is: automating how you capture data, for the most part. And we've talked about it in many ways. Of course, there's a challenge then of what you do with that data, but then there you've got the interfacing technologies. Big data, data science, artificial intelligence, all that
blockchain
comes into it, right? And we will talk about just that ecosystem in a bit. But let's finish off the talk about the sector. So we've talked about agriculture. I think it's a massive area there, especially looking at our country. I mean, 70% of our population relies on agriculture for everything, right?
And if we were effectively using half an acre like you described that farmer in Ruiru, you can imagine how far.
If our paths had crossed 5 years ago, my friend. Anyway, we leave to die another day. But yeah, so agri, and we've talked about that. We've talked about utility and the massive opportunities that the government has to just enhance service provision by avoiding wastage, leakage, all that stuff. Again, using this way of data gathering. Let's talk a little bit about logistics. It's a big industry.
Yeah. Logistics is big, and when we're talking about logistics, we are looking at transport sector, warehousing. One of our earliest people to adopt IoT were actually in the logistics industry. And these were guys who were also connected to the horti industry, agriculture. Now, good example is flowers. I produce flowers. You know how that industry is stringent conditions. Everything has to be done perfectly. They really need to use data so that you make sure you don't go into losses. I produce flowers. They are supposed to be kept under certain conditions. You come as a logistics company, pick flowers from my farm. By the time they're getting to the warehouse, they are spoiled because temperatures at Kinungi or somewhere, or your cold chain truck didn't work properly, and you didn't know. My flowers worth 50 million are spoiled. Who's gonna meet that cost, So when it comes to logistics, you also have that bit where you need to monitor what's being ferried around. So you need to do temperature, humidity monitoring. When these goods are being moved, pharmaceutical, horticultural, food stuff. And also when they're being stored, because some of these things need to be at some optimum conditions. Above or below, you're incurring losses and huge losses, to be precise. Then we also look at telemetrics. I have a fleet of 1,000 vehicles. Which ones get siphoned? Which one is stuck where? How does this driver drive?
I've had those stories of drivers and napiga simu is like, sasa, gari imekwama. Wanasema wanahitaji. You have no way of knowing if the guy is playing.
You have no way of knowing if the guy is playing you. Yeah. Though there are some systems already out there monitoring fuel, whatnot, even if the fuel cap has been opened and not, all that type of stuff. So yeah, that's still whole IoT. So vehicle tracking is like one of the oldest IoT thing is. But then it will just be, this gadget is sending data, but you couldn't monitor it immediately. You couldn't get alerts if your vehicle is stuck. And when you talked telemetry, you had mentioned about insurance. They're also now getting into that, into now personal cars. We want to know how you drive so that we know how to insure you next year. Are you heavy on the foot? Do you overtake like a madman? All these things. And when you combine it now with AI, it will tell us this guy is a good driver, because the AI will have all this information about this vehicle and how it's driven. So and insurance companies will now know Alex with his blue Subaru.
Hey, what was Subaru wameumia? Okay.
Luchiri drives like this. This guy is not going to have an accident in so many years. So entice him. If we don't, somebody else will take him.
There's a technical name for that industry.
Telemetry.
That's still within telemetry.
But I branched off kidogo. But now, so don't think IoT is just into those spaces. That is what we in the technical side decided, okay, where will we add value so that we can feed our families? There's something you mentioned, caught me off guard. Now I can agree. IoT in banking, and I was like, money, how do you track money? The guys always have cops with guns, nothing there. But you've mentioned something very interesting.
Make it pretty scary for anybody to think about.
But you've mentioned something pretty interesting. Monitoring your ATMs, too hot in the ATM lobby, too bad for the client. You mentioned that was in Lamu or somewhere.
Yes, it was the coast.
At the coast. The thing breaks down. And that reminded me, one of the clients we got, it was in a way we didn't even expect. We were talking about horticulture, utility, real estate. Real estate is basically in the utilities, so avoiding all these reading meters, blah, blah, blah. If the meter can send you an invoice and a way to pay, why go reading 100 meters, water meters?
I still have a guy who comes to my house, I think, once a month and says, nimekuja kusoma meter.
It's hectic. Why do that while the meter can do all that? Just when you're here, your bill is this. And you can also monitor yourself because you have an app. So I use too much water in the morning. I've used 300 liters. So this is my bill for the month. You can even start knowing if you're going to go into the apps to borrow money to pay for water. And then also the security side, no need for somebody coming all the time to, open the gate to some meter and all that. So that's the application in the real estate. With a smart water meter, you sort that one out.
See. And that's existing technology.
That's existing technology. Oh yeah, there are a number of companies aggressively doing that. And even some developers in Africa is talking that we are working with are actually into it. So as I was saying, don't limit it to what we have mentioned. These are things we are thinking about. There are problems that you didn't know IoT is the solution.
Yes.
Like you said, the ATM machine that the fan went off, things heated up, customer experience is different, machine locks down. We got a client who, it's the server room that went off. They were not monitoring. Yeah, of course, they were monitoring it. They know what's happening in the server. But when the ACs went off, nobody told them the ACs have gone off. And this happened at night. So you come in the morning and everything is locked, including the main door. So they're like, oh, okay. There are other applications out there, even for us. So we don't know everything, and it's what I was saying. If you need a human every time to go do it, like I saw in flower farms and in their cold rooms, somebody has to go checking, it's 25 degrees, and then writes down, puts that paper there. Then after an hour, somebody else comes. Why do you need to do that if, the thermometer, the temp humidity system itself can tell you, hey, things are okay or things are running bad.
I just thought of, I don't know if this is, now that you've said it that way, that if you need a person to go gather any sort of data or do any activity, then you could potentially be in need of IoT. Tell me if this works. So, toilets. You go into any public toilet, there's that little sheet that says somebody came and cleaned it, and these guys, I think, have a schedule where you have to clean every hour. And I'm just assuming if I'm running a cleaning company and I'm sitting back at my office, today the only way for me to know that my people are actually cleaning the toilets the way they should is I have a supervisor who has to do the rounds. If I had a problem like that, can IoT help?
Yeah, one way is that whole paper thingy can be eliminated. Because, I don't know why they do that. I know it's part of supervision that I came, I cleaned. But then what do they do with that data after? Do they digitize it in some way so that it happened?
I don't know. Maybe just help somebody somewhere to yell at somebody.
But now that will bring us to the other question of where we are at IoT in the country. Maybe we discuss that after we talk about the whole setting up of. It's actually related. Why that has not been automated, or is it an IoT thingy? Now, IoT is it's not those things that you'll say, Alex has now opened an office, I'm doing IoT. The value chain is quite large, Because when you're talking of IoT, you're talking of data collection, you're talking of hardware. Now, with the advancements in technology, hardware engineers are pretty different from software engineers. You talk to hardware engineers, there are also categories in there. Software engineers, there is a full stack, there is a back end, there's a front end, and all that. And then it's a business. It's not just, I want a website, you come, you do your thing, you hand it to a client. You have to look at all the markets you need to go to, who you need to reach out to. It's a new thing. You need to talk to people to get it, even if they see the need. So IoT is quite wide in what is required. So you have the hardware. When we are talking of your problem with the strawberries, that probe that was dug into the soil, that's hardware. Do we manufacture those in Kenya? No. So you have to start thinking of, where do I get them?
I see.
And if I get them, does it make sense? Or does it make sense to pay their million bob to have somebody come do this? Those are some of the hurdles. Then after that, you have to think of the platform now. And this is where we probably need to mention, there are different platforms on IoT. Those who understand will ask you, are you dealing with LoRa, NB-IoT, or Sigfox?
Okay, you just threw a whole bunch of words at me.
We are getting technical now. We've had stories, now let's go to them. to the crux of this. Yeah. So how the data is transmitted, there are different ways. It's like your iPhone, Android, iOS, differences, Android, iOS. So it's just the different major players and the route they took. And the three main ones are literally Sigfox, which is has its origins in France. It's the same thing, data being transmitted by devices, but now you find a device that transmits Sigfox is different. It can't work with how a device transmits LoRa, and it can't work with a device that's doing NB-IoT.
I see.
Now, Sigfox is a private company, French in origin. In Kenya, I know Liquid Telecom are the ones who are doing it. They have already set up all the infrastructure needed. Oh, and I forgot to mention, for these devices to communicate, it's just like having phones. They need BTSs. So how does the gadget data get to your phone? There's infrastructure involved there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the internet would work for that. I just connect it to the internet. I make sure they...
not all gadgets work like that, because different places will need different solutions. You need to connect these things to the internet at some point, which is the most efficient way to do it. If you had gadgets that are just plug, do it, it means they are using either GSM or something to connect to the internet. It becomes a bit expensive in terms of battery life especially, and costs also. Yeah. So most of them at the lower end, the hardware will probably be doing radio frequency because it's cheaper, it's not too power hungry and all that. Yeah. And then after that, it becomes internet. Once it becomes internet, it's open to the world.
I see.
Yeah.
So would that have geographical limitations, like they have to be close to each other?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Like they have to communicate to a base station of one way or another. So actually, let me summarize it to the non-techies. Okay. These things are mentioning LoRa, Sigfox, NB-IoT is basically the infrastructure that carries this data. NB-IoT, which is short for narrowband Internet of Things, is what the telcos will use mostly. Now, as Internet of Things was developing, this was the same time that there was this whole discussions on open source and whatnot. You remember? There was a time it was a big thing, open source software.
Or
open
Linux
source.
and whatever,
Yeah, so, and we're really catching up. So LoRa, which is long range technology, was sort of open source. And it was developing quite fast. And I think as a response, the telcos decided, okay, we need to get into this. So narrowband IoT is what was their response to LoRa. Sigfox I have not read much about how they name, but yeah, they also came up and decided, okay, we are offering this infrastructure, this is the hardware you use. So if you sit down and you're thinking of starting an IoT company, you'll need hardware experts, you'll need software, backend, front end, and then you'll need the whole marketing, sales, whatnot, shebang.
To do that. So that's the guy trying to become an entrepreneur, to do what you do, basically, right?
Yes.
Okay. Once you're done, I want to talk about me running a logistics company. I told you I work for a bank, so I'm trying to figure out a solution to this ATM thing, for instance, or any other industry.
I think we have figured that one out.
I think we have. Yeah, we'll talk about it after this. I have a friend who started a water manufacturing company, and went and bought this massive machine. I don't know from where. And he's filtering water and packaging it and distributing it. In his case, for instance, I see him having logistics. There's an element of logistics there in terms of moving the stuff. There's an element of this investment is made in this big machine. How does he make sure it's uptime and its maintenance and all that? I think there's an IoT element that comes into play there. I don't know what else, but
the other thing you forget, they are a water company like the other water companies. And our interaction with those companies is is what I'm selling commensurate to what I'm producing? So actually I have dealt with a few companies that deal with that, and they need a meter to monitor what has been sold, to compare with what they have produced, so that Kenyans don't be Kenyans and, sell one cup, sell two through other means. Yeah.
So what do I need? Where do I start as Alex with data gathering and distribution challenges and all that? Just walk me through that journey until I end up in Luchiri's office to talk to him about my problems. What should I have done before this?
Is this a client with an issue, or you're mentioning a person who wants to go into IoT?
No. The client, because that's the bulk of us. So, and I'm pretty sure even most of the people who will be watching are not necessarily people who want to be IoT experts. Mm-hmm. They just want to see, can this thing help me make my business, for instance, more competitive? Or can I go to my boss tomorrow with a brilliant suggestion around an investment we can make in the IoT space to enhance the efficiency of something? What's my journey?
That's a tough question. Let me see if I understand it. What's your journey? What I always tell people, having been in the tech industry for a while, is the development side of things is not difficult. I like techies, I like programmers. I just say, mention your problem. These guys will solve it. It might take a month, it might take 2 months, it might take 2 years, but they'll solve it. Yeah. The bottlenecks that come are, can you pay for it, or will it pay for itself? And that's the problem, and that's actually where most of the discussions on IoT have tended to stop or halt. You do the maths on what's needed, and especially on the hardware side of things, what's needed, and then you're like, okay, doesn't make sense. When will I return my investment? Yeah. And that is actually where everything stalls. Okay. That's where it stalls. But when somebody wants to do it, I often just ask, what do you want to measure? Measure here being, what data do you want to collect? That's it. That question you asked about the cleaning companies, I was afraid you're going to tell me how to monitor that it has been cleaned. And I was like, now what type of sensor is going to go?
I would actually hope for that. Like if, some guy has come, I ran a bar and they've messed the floor or something.
I'll bust your bubble. Now, what type of sensor do we use to monitor that? That's the problem right there.
Because I feel like IoT promises if you can track whether my fridge has milk, surely you should be able to track if my toilet is clean.
But you see, with the milk, we'll probably have a sensor that we tell you, put your milk here. And we know it measures 500 liters, so we know there's 500 liters here. Anything below, we know there's no milk here. And now when you tell me, track that the toilets, it has been cleaned, man, the sensor itself will start cracking our heads up and we'll tell you, no, there's nothing like that.
Okay, maybe put the sensor on the cleaning thing, just to show that it's actually been used every hour.
They could be cleaning a seat where they are seated. Then we'll start thinking of putting a GPS device in it, and then it becomes expensive.
Yeah, then you have to map the toilet and all that.
We are like, okay, we are spending more on just the hardware than the value we are deriving from it.
I feel like this conversation we are having right now, I have a feeling it's not the first time you found yourself in a weird type of a conversation of this nature where you're trying to, so what exactly do you want me to do for you? You said something interesting earlier, which was when a company today is trying to make investment decisions from a growth point of view, IoT is the last thing on their mind. Let's start there. First of all, for knowledge gap issues, but just like any other technology investment, it's a capital investment, the hardware and the software that you just talked about, right? And you mentioned that the challenge then becomes, how to justify the return on investment, which may not necessarily, because I don't know if the ROI for investing in IoT is immediate, if there are some aspects of it that are immediate, but or given the cost of it, then it's something that I have to think about as a long-term investment. Are there short-term aspects to IoT that I can say, this one is plug and play, next month you start seeing returns?
No, it doesn't work like that. You'll first start seeing peace of mind, which is very important. Peace of mind is the first thing. Is the first thing you'll get, and then we can get down to the numbers later on. Like, you used to spend. It's like buying. You're in banking. I'm pretty sure banks ask themselves, why should we buy laptops and computers? How do you value that? Yes, there's big value. You're being told to spend almost 100,000 on a laptop. But then when you sit down with the person who does all the accounting and whatnot, and you realize how much time they would save doing a lot of this and that, at the end of the year, you monetize that plus what you wasted, things have moved on pretty smoothly and better. So IoT is the same way. You can't say, I bought a device today and now
here we are. So it forms
but it's the efficiency, yes.
Yeah, and to use your laptop analogy, so and let me talk about banking because that's where I work. So you'll have a digital transformation strategy where the CEO will say, within 5 years, we want to reduce our cost to serve, say, by 30%. That 30% cost to serve reduction involves a lot of automation and things like that, reducing manpower, all that. And then in there is where you will say, oh, guess what? If we're going to empower one person to do what 5 people used to do, they're going to need a better laptop. And then now the laptop can be justified.
Yes.
In the context of the digital transformation journey, right? And so, if I'm not wrong, for you guys, you come in, there has to be somewhere I'm trying to go as a business owner or as an executive. And then somewhere in that journey, I find myself in your world. Yeah. Maybe I'm looking to enhance the efficiency of how I collect data or enhance the speed of how I solve the problems of my customers or whatever that might be. And in the search for that competitiveness, this then becomes a solution. Let's talk a little bit about the people involved in this IoT ecosystem. So I know Luchiri. So Luchiri is an IoT expert. So are you a hardware or a software specialist, or is it both?
I'm more into product management right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got you as a product management person. Who else is in this value chain?
Okay, good question. So as I mentioned, we start off at the very tail end. You have the hardware. So you need hardware engineers, people who can do the hardware coding and all that, hardware programming and all that. Because first and foremost, you have to know, okay, what are we tackling? Which route do we go? Sigfox, LoRa, NB-IoT, Weebee, what are we trying to solve here? Because what a farmer in a rural area will need is not what a farmer in Nairobi or a bank in Nairobi would want, So you have to think about all those solutions so that you don't recommend something expensive or won't work somewhere different. So we need to figure that one out first. And then we now need to look at, okay, which hardware are we looking at? How are we going to program it? Blah, blah, blah. Then you come to the software itself. What happens in the backend when this data comes here? In which format is it? So you have a backend developer, you have a front-end developer, you have a full-stack engineer, you have a UI, UX guy. And then at the end of the day, people the clients themselves don't care what's happening in there. You even have, you need data analysts with all this data. Yeah. At the end of the day, user just wants to see nice graphs and bars and answers. Like, it gets hot at the middle of the month. So this is when we need to be doing this or that. Last October, this is the failure rate of this and this machine. That's it. That's all they want to know. They don't. But then the people working below them need the technical details and whatnot, like what specifically was failing, what was. So that's the whole value. If you need to solve people's problem, logistics, what we were mentioning, that's the whole thing you need to do. Yeah. So those are the people involved in this whole process.
I see. And when you come to the client, who typically will be your contact there?
The tech guys would
To be the tech guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Who needs to be able to sell it as a
interesting.
business?
Yeah. No, it's interesting you ask that because, like I've said, the top guy will probably want to know why the ATM is not working. Is it that the machine doesn't work? Then you go explaining to him, it's the AC that failed.
Yes.
And then, so how do we solve that? We need to monitor that AC so that it doesn't fail. Now that guy just wants that machine working. Then we move now to you and we tell you, you need a temp humidity sensor in there to monitor these. Yeah. So now I'll move back to you. We'll probably get thrown back to you and we start talking the technicals about it. And then when they throw in the guys at accounts, then this whole conversation
comes
is in shambles. Yes. The budget.
Isn't there a more cost-effective way of us achieving the same outputs?
Leaving the door open all the time.
I get that. It's a classic problem with technology investments.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now, as I was mentioning, you see, that whole chain, even for a guy who wants to do it, where do you start? Who do you talk to? Which companies to supply what? And that's now what we are trying to do with Africa's Talking. We know there are techies out there. It's a technical problem. And AT works with developers. The value is actually in empowering devs. So there's a guy out there who knows, you guys need to monitor your this and that. But, techies are not client-facing and all that stuff. So he just wants to sort out the technical side of things. Yeah. But you also realize when you get into IoT, he needs to do this, he needs to do that. So what we are doing there is working on this platform now and making things plug and play. Did you encounter somebody as a tech or as a dev who says they have an issue monitoring their soil? Say yes. How do you solve that? Oh, here is a developer kit. Go plug in a soil moisture or soil pH sensor, do a bit of code, and voila, you can give him alerts, give him SMSs of how things are going. Show him a graph and tell him where to improve things after that. So that's part of the headache we are trying to solve and make a IoT palatable and easily consumable.
I get that.
Yeah.
I think there is need for further education, if you ask me. Because now when you go into the different verticals, the applications, of course, differ, right? And there is, which I'm pretty sure you guys have probably been doing, is now going to the spaces, and especially as a product guy like you, is to then say what are the different forms of applications or the different problem statements where this stuff can come in. So that then you are the interface between the problem statements that the clients have and what the technology can do. Is that a good way of?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Fair enough. So if anyone today who has a challenge with data gathering, monitoring, or looking to optimize how things work, should potentially be talking to someone like you.
Yeah.
Okay. I just need a plug for you there, by the way. So if you get me a shout out of this conversation.
Definitely.
Just 12%, nothing much. I'm not like the government. Yeah.
That's above God. God asks for 10. This guy is asking for 12.
Friend, I'm not God. I've got kids to feed. Okay.
If God can, feed the universe on 10, why does this guy want 12?
I'm not omnipotent like he is. So, I work with what I have. I'm just saying.
That's a good one.
But thanks, man. I think this has been very, very helpful. When we started this conversation, you said that the whole fridge milk thing, house talk to my car, was not here yet. What is here? What can we do here today? Other than the things we've just talked about. So tech-wise, can I even get this stuff in my house, for instance?
Yeah. And as I said, there are a lot of devs out there who know the technical solutions you need. There are a lot of hardware experts out there, but they just don't know how to connect these things. And that's now, as Africa is talking, we are trying to do. So you just mention your problem to a dev and then tell them to come to AT.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think I'll come do a visit to you guys. I have found this very valuable, and I'm hoping that the people watching I also have. But of course, as you can realize, there's a lot in there, a lot of meat that we've probably glossed over. Yeah. And so whether you're a dev looking to understand IoT better, whether you are an executive looking to understand how this can be applied in your business, or an entrepreneur looking to ways of making yourself more competitive in your sector, we have a boot camp coming up, 5 days, takes only about an hour and a half of your day every day for 5 days. In that bootcamp, Luchiri is now going to be going into the details, right? All these technologies you talked about, the software, the hardware, the ecosystem and how it works, what you can find at Africa's Talking when you engage them. So we're going to go into those details. So please register for the session. It's a very limited audience because we want to try to drive quality. Only 20 participants in the bootcamp. So the sooner you apply, the better. And let's learn together. That's what this is all about. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and bless.